37% of individuals aged 20 to 39 experience poor sleep quality. Globally, people are suffering. It's an epidemic. Enter Morpheus, the smart sleep mask that collects sleep data. It monitors your sleep stages through optimally placed embedded sensors and offers personalized sleep insights or tips. Users can also set silent alarms. These are quiet, gentle vibrations from the mask that wake you up during your lightest stage of sleep. All of these features serve to improve sleep quality. That is the value proposition of Morpheus. Morpheus is a breakthrough innovation because it can accurately determine your sleep stages. Stages 1 and 2 are light sleep, stages 3 and 4 are deep sleep, and REM is where a lot of recuperative body processes take place. We cycle through all of these stages every 90 minutes. What you see here on the slide is very similar to the data Morpheus collects and displays. It essentially monitors your sleep stages. From this sleep stage data, Morpheus is then able to provide personalized sleep insights or tips such as optimal bedtimes, wake-up times, etc. By accurately determining your sleep stages, Morpheus has the potential to address everything from sleep inertia, having a hard time waking up, to insomnia. All of these issues impact sleep stage, so sleep stage data is extremely critical information when it comes to improving sleep quality. Morpheus utilizes sleep stage data in its silent alarm feature as well. Again, these are quiet, gentle vibrations from the mask that wake you up during your lightest stage of sleep, so stage 1 or 2. If you're woken up during stage 3 and 4 or REM sleep, that's when you experience sleep inertia. Since we cycle through our sleep stages every 90 minutes, all you have to do is input your wake-up times, as shown on the slide, and Morpheus will wake you up prior to the indicated time during stage 1 or 2 sleep. This makes for an easy wake-up, and because it's completely silent, you don't have to worry about waking up your roommate or your spouse. In terms of hardware, Morpheus utilizes a triaxial accelerometer to measure movement and a pressure sensor to measure heart rate. It's important to note the optimal placement of the pressure sensor at the forehead, which is an extremely accurate measurement location for heart rate, as opposed to Apple Watches or other devices that measure at the wrist or other inaccurate measurement locations. Morpheus also utilizes a Bluetooth chip for the transmission of data from the sensors to an app on a paired mobile device, and the vibration motor produces those gentle vibrations utilized in that silent alarm feature. In terms of software, Morpheus dually processes your movement and your heart rate with an algorithm in order to determine sleep stage. This is a breakthrough technique. Currently, sleep stage can only really be determined by monitoring brain activity, so being hooked up with electrodes to a giant machine or with an expensive tracker that utilizes a host of expensive sensors. With a preliminary patent search, it's clear that no cost-efficient and accurate alternatives have been devised. However, there was a study conducted that determined that sleep stage could be accurately determined by both movement and heart rate. That is exactly what Morpheus aims to do. I'd like to note here that Morpheus is in the ideation stage. With sufficient funding, we will begin prototyping. Who are we targeting? We're looking for young working adults because they generally have some disposable income and they're typically more health conscious. Since sleeping problems affect them more acutely, they're more likely to invest in a product like Morpheus. With the target market in mind, we've priced accordingly. Morpheus has a retail price of $37.99, costing $26 to manufacture and yielding $11.99 in profit. That's roughly a 45% markup, and this is extremely reasonable considering that many of these types of devices cost hundreds of dollars. Morpheus falls within the domain of the sleep technology smart devices market, and as you can see, it's quite promising. Some competitors in the space include wearable health trackers such as Apple Watches or the Oura Ring. And while these track many health aspects, including sleep, they're often extremely expensive, costing hundreds of dollars, and they're generally inaccurate due to ineffective sensor placement. They're also not as comfortable to wear to bed. Some other competitors include sleep masks with miscellaneous features, and while these are generally more comfortable and affordable options, they have no data collection whatsoever. Morpheus hits all of these points, and it does so for a reasonable price point. In terms of milestones, we're hoping to begin prototyping within the next year. Once we've reached a satisfactory design, we will sign a contract with the manufacturer to produce our first batch of products, and we plan on selling this initial inventory through an online vendor. Our rudimentary financial projections are quite promising, with millions of dollars in revenue and millions of dollars in profit, with a break-even point at roughly 2 years. Thank you.
Anybody want to go first? What's your background? What's your major?
I'm a computer science major. I'm a freshman here.
So the software part, you think?
Yeah.
what about people that don't want a mask? Could it be done in a headband?
That could potentially be something involved. Something that we've tried to focus on, or I've tried to focus on in developing this product, I know that people aren't always open to the idea of wearing an eye mask. That's something that I didn't really wear up until when I came to college. But I've noticed that it can be really valuable, you know, when you, like I have a roommate, she'll stay up and she won't turn the lights off, so I usually will wear an eye mask and that helps with that. But something I want to focus on with this product is comfort. So that's why I've emphasized here a foam padding with an ergonomic design, just so that it molds to your face and it's not really obtrusive. A headband is something that we could potentially consider though, but comfort here is really an emphasis.
Did you come up with the innovation?
Yes, this is my idea. I found the sleep study later on and sort of some of the technical details I've done research for. But the idea really just came to me in my first year seminar when we were told to come up with a product that could help college students. And that's kind of how it came to life.
And do you have anybody else on the team?
It's just me so far. Yeah.
Okay, great.
So great presentation.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Wonderful
fantastic.
job. I like the presentation. Very clear about what you've done. So you're in the very early stages.
Right.
Tell me about what your first plans are for prototyping.
So for prototyping, I'll go back to the slide here. I'd like to begin with rudimentary prototyping. What I mean here is just me tinkering with something on my own. I know that the UMass has the Makerspace, a valuable resource here on campus, so I'd like to pay them a visit. And I know that they might have some tools on hand, but obviously they may not have all of the materials I need, and I need some little seed funding to begin with that. Once I've sort of figured out, like, okay, these are the sensors that work for my product, this is what's going to get me the data I need, then I'd like to approach a manufacturer to produce a product and see if it's feasible, you know, on a larger scale. And once a satisfactory manufactured prototype has been reached, we will.
Further down the road there.
Yeah.
So any of the software have you already started figuring out some of the software in your head? Or
I have not started actually coding the software, but like what I write here, this is actually from the research that I mentioned in my presentation. But as you can see here, basically they divide it into non-REM sleep and REM sleep. So non-REM sleep is stages 1 through 4. REM sleep is, again, that portion of sleep where you're dreaming, a lot of recuperative body processes are taking place. And the way they determine it is there's a minimum activity threshold, a maximum activity threshold, a minimum heart rate value, and a maximum heart rate value. And again, I mentioned the algorithm basically dually processes your heart rate and your movement in order to determine sleep stage. So that's kind of like the general idea behind the algorithm, using those minimum threshold values, maximum threshold values, and processing like that.
have you thought about, so there's the Institute for Applied Life Sciences, they do some things with sleep studies and
Yeah.
other things. It sounds like they would be great people to partner with.
Yeah, I have, oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have not reached out to them yet, but I've been meeting with some of the MBA fellows at the Entrepreneurship Center, and that's something they've recommended to me, so I hope to approach them.
Have you, the idea that yours could be better than an Apple Watch, do you have an Apple Watch? Do you use their sleep?
My parents have an Apple Watch, and they use that for sleep tracking, and they found that it's not been...
I guess where it's going is, you know, kind of a minimum viable product. I mean, you'd have a compelling case. You made a great case, I got to say,
Thank you,
but a really compelling case if you could show that, like a headband or a mask gets better data than the Apple Watch.
Right.
And just the simple, it doesn't have to be statistically significant, but
Right.
if you could show that the data is different and that you think it's better, and focusing your prototype on that would be compelling. So.
Go ahead.
I was just going to ask you what the next step is in prototyping specifically.
So for me in prototyping, I'd like to get my hands on those sensors, and I currently don't have all the technical expertise, if I'm being fully transparent, I'm not quite sure how to get the data and bring it into my algorithm. And I feel like I can write a basic algorithm for this, so doing some technical research. I think is the next step, and then getting my hands on those sensors and then trying to actually implement it on my own. I think those are my next steps. I'd like to go to the makerspace as well.
That's fantastic. What resources would you need?
In terms of resources, again, I'd like to have some technical advisors. Currently, I do have, I've been making use of the MBA fellows, as I mentioned, at the Entrepreneurship Center, and they're great for providing, business advice and that sort of thing. But I don't really have any technical advisors, and I understand that this is a very niche technical topic, and so it might be hard to seek out individuals, but I think that's kind of the support I'm looking for at this point.
Are you aware of the M5 makerspace for the ECE students?
No, I'm not.
Okay, so it's just the place where you might actually find most of the parts you need
Oh, really?
on campus, and maybe some students to work with you. So
Perfect. Thank you. I'll definitely check them out.
it's for ECE students, but you can get in. So very cool. Yeah, I think you've got a lot of pieces to put together
Right.
and start playing with some devices. It sounds like you have a lot of iterations to do to try some things, to test it out. I see you probably being your first test subject for many of these tests.
Right.
I pity your roommate, but it sounds very good. How much time? 3 minutes. Oh, great. So are you finding that you're so this is a little side into it, but aside from the support from the Berthium Center, what other support do you think you need to bring this forward?
So I know that formal backing is something that I could hope for in the future. Investor backing, speaking to angel investors and venture capitalists. But I do think I probably need something a little more concrete before approaching those entities. In terms of other support, I do want to bring some people onto my team, whether it's just peers or other people that I find are also interested in what I'm doing. It's kind of hard to manage it all on my own. And I have worked on group endeavors before, and I think it would be valuable to have some people.
Is Hack UMass coming up, or has it happened? I can't remember.
It's happening this weekend.
Great project to spend some of the weekend on for that. Is Hack UMass is a great way to at least debug a few of those things.
Right,
And
right.
you'll get a lot of people who have it's all about, can we hook up sensors to our Arduino or something? It's going to be big and bulky, and that's fine. Don't worry about that yet. Everything can be made small.
I'm participating in Hack UMass, so I have a team for that, and I'll
Yeah, that's the
propose
right
it.
I just lost the question I was going to ask, but that's fine. Have you? Oh, I know what it was. Have you talked to any of your customers that you feel like, you mentioned people in this sort of young age? Have you talked to them to try and figure out sort of what they're looking for?
I haven't conducted a formal customer survey or anything of that sort, but I have been talking with young adults. Obviously, I have a pool of young adults available around me. So I have been talking with them, and many of them have mentioned this roommate conundrum, spouse or roommate, they don't want to wake them up with their alarm. I've experienced it personally, and that's sort of how that silent alarm feature came into play. Also, just talking with a lot of my fellow college peers, many of them have expressed to me that sleep inertia. They feel a lot of, when they have to get up for that 8 a.m., it's really hard to get up because they're being woken up during REM sleep or stage 3 and 4, as opposed to naturally waking up during stage 1 and 2. That's where you want to be woken up. And so that's sort of the feelings that I'm getting. In terms of wearing an actual sleep mask, I proposed that to people who don't typically wear sleep masks. And they said they wouldn't entirely be opposed to it. Obviously, there's a bit of resistance because, it's something that you're not used to. But I think I can address that if I can make the product comfortable, and that's why I want to prioritize that.
Excellent. And
17 seconds.
Real quick, have you talked to any corporates that may be interested in something like this?
I have not talked to any corporate entities yet.
Okay.
Great.
Two thoughts. I think your understanding of the basic problem and the selection of things that you could bring to solving it is amazing at this stage. Your pricing and your market need to be, I think you could greatly
Yeah,
expand
definitely.
that, so,
I second that.
yeah.
Yeah. It's too cheap.
Well done, very well done.
Very good job.
All right, hi everyone. My name is JB and I'm one of FUD's co-founders. I'd like to start by asking you a question. Do you like getting your time wasted? No, and neither do we, especially when it comes to the dining experience. And from our surveys and customer interviews with over 800 respondents, we found that on average, you're wasting 20 minutes just searching for a restaurant, 20 minutes waiting for your food, and 15 minutes waiting for your bill. That's nearly 60 minutes of your time wasted. But restaurant goers aren't the only ones hurting. So are the restaurants. And so let me ask you another question. Do you like price gouging your local businesses? Of course not, but our competitors do. Your local restaurants relied on online ordering and reservation services to get through the pandemic. But instead of supporting them, these services chose to take 20 to 30% of the total bill from all online orders. And to top it off, they charge monthly subscriptions and hidden variable fees that cost restaurants anywhere between $250 to over $1,000 a month. Now this left restaurants with little to no margins and few options for survival. And while some made it through, there were over 110,000 restaurants that closed in 2020 and 2.5 million jobs erased. Now please, don't let that just be a statistic. Really think about it. That's millions of people with bills to pay and families to support who just lost their livelihood. And these competing services could have done a much better job helping, but they didn't. So that's why we've stepped up. Our solution is FUD, an app that will turn those 60 minutes into 60 seconds, all while helping restaurants maximize their revenue. And so, with our app being programmed in Flutter, we allow both Android and iOS users to make the most of our group swiping feature, allowing you and your friends to swipe through restaurants one by one, swiping right for yes and left for no. And with our smart algorithm, it makes suggestions based on your personal preferences. So if you like tacos but I hate them, but we all love sushi, it's going to recommend sushi. And that's why within 5 minutes of swiping, you've all matched the great sushi place in town. Then, with our pre-ordering feature, you can make a reservation, order your food, and pay on the app so that when you get to the restaurant, your food is ready to eat as soon as you sit down. And when you're done eating, you can just get up and leave because you've already paid. And so the user-to-restaurant communication is made very easy because all your order information gets sent straight to their POS system through Omnivore, and so does the payment with Stripe. And with our unique features, we'll quickly become a market leader. Because for our users, with pre-ordering allowing them to remove unnecessary wait times, they can focus on the best parts of dining. So regardless of whether you're in a rush and you want your food immediately, or if you want to chat with your friends and just snack on appetizers while you look at the menu, the dining experience is entirely in your control. And with our smart algorithm, we give everyone a voice by taking each person's preferences into account and ensuring that no one gets left out from the decision making. So regardless of whether you have dietary restrictions or you're somebody with a personality too kind to say no, you won't be left out. And for our restaurants, our greatest advantage is helping them maximize their table turnover, which is how quickly they can get people in and out of tables. And our competitors tell them that rate. But with our pre-ordering feature, cutting out that unnecessary wait time for their customers, we can directly increase table turnover, which in turn directly increases their revenue. And so in situations of COVID, where restaurants have a forced limit of 50% capacity, that's 50% of the revenue gone. But with our pre-ordering feature allowing them to serve more customers in one day, you can operate at 50% capacity with near 100% revenue, with near 100% capacity revenue. And we go even further than that. With our in-app ordering, we allow their customers to order within the restaurant at any time they want. Because we found that some customers want to do that, but they either won't because they don't want to wait for the server to come back, or they're just too embarrassed to ask for the menu again. But with in-app ordering, you can order your food whenever you want without any wait and no embarrassment. And now, revenue aside, we also know that restaurants and their customers care about representation and support, which is why with our app, we allow restaurant owners to select restaurant tags that say things like Black-owned business or woman-owned business, so that users within their communities can actually easily identify them and then show support. And we'll charge restaurants 0% from all online orders, and on our most basic plan, restaurants have everything they need for $265. And that's it. There's no price gouging and no hidden fees. And in the past year, we've made a lot of progress. 1 year ago today, we had a boring logo, we had no app whatsoever, and we only had our founding team. And today, we have a logo that speaks much more to our brand image. We have the front end completed prototype done and the back end in development. And then we also have 10 different interns from 4 different schools working with us. And to top it off, we have 3 different restaurants who have put down some pre-launch deposits confirming their interest in our app as soon as it's ready. And so, to continue this progress, we would use earnings from this pitch competition to help us complete and pay the app development, to purchase advertising materials, to advertise within our partner restaurants, and also to pay for our legal registration fees. So to summarize, we're not just helping restaurants survive, we're helping them thrive. So if you want to help yourself and your local businesses, then swipe right on FUD and join us in our journey of putting the fun back in food. Thank you.
I'll start. Okay, great presentation. You've obviously practiced this, and I know I've seen you at other things over the years. So since we're in the tech challenge here, what's the most challenging part of the technology here for you?
I think it's that portion that I talked about with the connection to the POS, or to the restaurant and the POS system, so their point of sale, because that is everything about our app. With pre-ordering being able to increase their revenue and maximize their table turnover, that only happens if users can order from our app, and then that information gets sent to the restaurant, and so does the payment. And so that is the biggest challenge, and that's what this diagram is for right here, completely explaining the whole view of what the app does and how it starts from the user, then goes through this third-party integration system, which is Omnivore, and then that sends it directly to their POS system. So, and that goes both ways. So if the restaurant updates their menu, that immediately reflects in the app for the user. And that's the biggest challenge, because if we can't accomplish that, then our biggest value prop is not there anymore.
Okay, and so you said you've got the front end, so tell me a little bit more about what's been done.
Absolutely.
Or what's remaining?
Yes, so the front end development of the app is completed, and so now I could pull out my phone and show you what the app would look like just as an initial MVP and prototype. I can't order or anything, it really is just visual, but at least that aspect of the app is done, and now we're in the back end development, so they're piecing together the actual functionalities and preparing this big hurdle that we're about to have to face. But we feel prepared, we've done our research, we've already spoken to Omnivore, and they have an entire team once you sign up that actually shows you how to integrate. They have the code, and we can immediately communicate that to our programming team and then make that happen, and same thing with Stripe.
And is that for ordering or for like making a reservation?
So it would be for both. So when we send in the information, if you're selecting whether it's a reservation time or if you're selecting the menu items that you want to order, when you do that on the app, Omnivore is the platform that will send that to the restaurant, and then Stripe is the platform that will process the payment.
Yeah, my sense is you've got a good understanding of the gaps in existing restaurant solutions and some of the impacts on the restaurants. It seems like, at least as far as business viability, some focus or more specific, like this is why we're going to be better in this circumstances all the way through the process.
Right.
Because you're talking about on premises, online, you know, and then I know this is not the focus of today, but your revenue model you really need to look at. There's a reason that companies charge what they do, and those companies aren't making money. So I'm not saying you should adopt what they're doing. I just think.
Right.
You
I
know.
mean, from the projections that we've done, because we're not like, because we're a service that does charge. The monthly subscription is a cost that will come in regularly, and then same thing. Well, that's really what we focused on most. But from the numbers that we have based on projections of, let's say, $80,000 of marketing budget and some employees that we've done that we would hire for it, at 199 restaurants, I believe we would break even with that subscription model of $265.
But I don't want to focus on the business side because that can come
Right.
later. But I do think that idea of you went through a whole bunch of things, but what are the problems with sort of a typical restaurant experience? Who benefits? The restaurant, the customer, and then what service you provide, and kind of going through that in a very organized way to look at, okay, an online premises thing. I like the social thing of a group wants to go out to dinner. That's something I've not heard anywhere, and could be, and it's something that's a gain for everyone. Right, the restaurants, even some of the other online platforms, hey, we're a way that's going to drive business. So you need that thing that is different than everybody, and then there's a bunch of things you could do better.
Right.
And you got a good understanding, it's got to kind of gel.
Yeah, and I think
Become coherent.
to that point, we've spoken to a lot of restaurants already, directly restaurant owners, and done interviews, and that's also why we have 3 restaurants who are already signed up technically because they've paid our pre-launch deposit. And the value proposition, what you're talking about that would stick out and make that difference is the pre-ordering. So that concept of being able to order your food ahead of time, and then when you get to the restaurant, it's ready for you immediately. That's what restaurants in our target market really value, because that directly increases their table turnover. So we wouldn't be targeting, for example, fine dining restaurants or fast food, because fine dining, they want their users to be in the restaurant, look at the menu, take their time. Fast food, they're not sitting in the restaurant. So what we're really targeting is restaurants who value that high turnover and getting people in and out as fast as possible. And so that specific feature, I agree with you, we have many, so that's why it seems very broad. But the one huge proposition that we provide that restaurants always light up at when they hear it is that pre-ordering, because they realize, like, I've been trying so hard to increase that, and my only methods are either training my staff to go faster, but they're human, so they can only go so fast, and then or otherwise almost rushing customers out, but you're not going to do that because that's going to harm your customer service, which is why that pre-ordering feature keeps restaurants or customers happy, since they're not wasting time waiting, they're not angrily hungry and getting hangry and wanting their food now, and they still really enjoy the full dining experience from start to finish.
So one of the things COVID did was the idea of an iPad at the table or a QR code, and now I can go to restaurants in Boston and pre-order drinks, everything, and when I arrive. So the availability of the table, you should look at, okay, best alternative. This is what we're doing. I'm not saying it's not as
No,
good,
absolutely,
but,
yeah.
but that, sorry. You have anything?
No, you're fine. Yeah. My question was, so you had a budget up there of things that
Yes.
money and for specific things that you needed done. Assume you had the money today. How fast would you be able to get the app ready?
So if we had the money today, I would say by April of next year, we would be completed with the app development. I mean, it's already in progress, so we already have it going. It's not like we would be starting today. So it would be completed by April. And then in terms of all the other things, in terms of marketing budgets and things like that, for example, I said marketing material that we would put in our partner restaurants, that would be direct ads like, for example, table tent cards or flyers and pamphlets that would, for now, only talk generally about what we're going to do, because we don't want to give away our features before launching, but that would already build up interest. And then as soon as we have the app launched, we could immediately already be working with those restaurants, have the material ready to go, so we could swap out the old ads for the new ones, and then tell people, download this app, just scan this QR code. And so that's what we'd be working on right now. We would have that budget to actually purchase these things.
And do you have the resources, money aside, on your team right now?
Absolutely, and that's why we have, like I mentioned, we started a year ago, or we didn't start a year ago, but last year we had just our founding team. And our founding team right now is 3 people, which I can move over to. But now we have, like I mentioned, 10 interns that are working with us, and so that's across different departments, both the marketing and the programming, the design. And so with their help, we can really increase that speed of production for these materials. And then with more funding, of course, from pitch competitions or actually launching our business, we could hire more people to work with us full time. But as it stands, our marketing interns, for example, have put out a lot of material for us, and they've been a huge help, so we're really grateful for them.
Got a few more. So the algorithm stuff. I'm focusing on the tech.
Yes.
Sorry. So you talked about the social side and that algorithm. So tell me some of the challenges that you've had trying to figure that out.
Absolutely. I think the balancing is hard, and also considering that there are some things that are non-negotiable for certain people, such as if you're vegan, we can't have our algorithm suggesting restaurants that only offer meat. That would make no sense. So that's been a challenge of figuring out how we can make these things work together. But with the way the app works, when you sign on, you select all your preferences ahead of time, whether they're non-negotiable, such as your dietary restrictions, or just general preferences of I like Italian, for example. And then our algorithm, we've built it out so that the non-negotiables would mean that restaurants that will pop up are restaurants that may have meat, but they will also offer vegan options. And we would know this because on the restaurant side of things with the web admin panel, they can select tags for what their restaurant actually offers. That way it searches based on tags.
So that's an important thing. You not only have to have the user input things on what they want, but the restaurant has to make sure they have pre-populated or provided information about the restaurant and the details.
So the restaurant,
will you make that easier for the restaurant?
Yes, and so that's what I was about to say. They can add more information, but what we're going to do to make it easy in the first place is to just web scrape a lot of the information that's already online, so that way it already populates. Even if they're not our customers, they can still show up as a restaurant card on our app, and then if they want to add additional information, they can.
It seems like there are multiple different parts to the product, and I think what might be helpful is for you to segment them and test those out once you get to the point
Absolutely.
where you can actually test
Yes.
the social part, and then the pre-ordering, and there's a lot to it, which is
Absolutely, there 100% is, and that's why we've already done a restaurant test live, so without the app, but just on pen and paper, where we had the neutral groups were just people that were coming in naturally, and then we had some test groups where we told them send in your orders ahead of time for us, and we'll put it in. And through those tests, we found, specific to pre-ordering, that you are indeed waiting 20 minutes on average for your meal, but with pre-ordering, you get it pretty much instantly, and their customer satisfaction was much higher from that specific test.
Thank you very much.
Hi everyone. I hope you guys are doing good. To dive right in, I would like to ask you guys a question. Have you ever been in a situation where you wanted to wear a luxurious item, like carry a Louis Vuitton bag or wear an Armani suit to formal events in school? We all have been there. Yeah. Being a college student by yourself is really tough. There are so many events that happens, like birthday parties, frat parties, and formal events. But keeping up with the trends. It's quite tough because they're continuously changing. That's where we found a real problem.
So let's look at some numbers behind those facts. Since the year 2000, clothing sales have doubled, while the average number of times each clothing article is worn has dropped by 40%. So we see an increase in sales but a decrease in utilization, which means that overall production has to go up. This translates into a staggering 77% increase in carbon emissions and a 21% increase in water usage for the clothing production process.
So here we come with Closets. Closets is a platform that will give you access to luxurious items on rent by the people nearby you at affordable prices. That will give students a chance to own luxurious items and look exceptional at events. At the same time, support sustainable shopping, save time and money.
But what is it about students that we'd like to target? For this one, I'd like to speak from my personal experience. I work a job that pays marginally above minimum wage, and I don't have a lot of money floating around to spend on clothes that I'll maybe wear twice a month. And at the same time, I don't have a lot of room to myself, and I need to pack up everything I own and relocate to a new place every single summer. In this environment, it's just not possible for me to maintain nice things as much as I'd like to have them. And I'm sure I'm not the only one with this problem. So the logical question following is, how many such students are there? Well, looking at the general student populace, there's nearly 29,000 of us on this campus alone and 19 million of us across the entire country.
We also have our environmental impact. Closets as a platform has a potential to emit 15% less carbon emissions than other e-commerce companies like Poshmark and Amazon. At the same time, it has 35% potential to increase sustainable fashion. Moving on, during a customer discovery with around 250 people, we realized that 92% of them need closets.
So this is kind of where we see ourselves at the moment. Closets has a solid market it can tap into, and this is a young populace which appreciates environmental friendly practices such as sustainable fashion. But at the same time, we find ourselves in the very nascent stages of ideation, and there's a number of similar competitors which threatens market saturation. But comparing ourselves with these more well-established players, we consider ourselves to be a more specific, purpose-driven project with definite goals to achieve all of these objectives which are listed here.
We'll have a subscription model. Our standard users will have a chance to rent up to one item, will have to pay service fees, and will have lesser options available. Whereas our premium users will have a chance to rent up to 4 products at a time, will have to pay no service fee, will have more premium products, only at $9 a month. Our ask here is for $15,000. We'll use this money to step up in our market research to build our tech team, which will in turn help us build our minimum viable product. We'll also use this money to get our social media marketing started, get influencers on board to start our influencer marketing, and also reach out to universities for on-campus marketing. This is our team. I'm Ami Rajesh, majoring in psychology and managerial economics.
And I'm Shreyas, a sophomore majoring in computer science and mathematics. And this is Closets.
First of all, good job. Lots of questions here. Well, I think one of the things I'm struggling a little bit is still on the competition and how this is significantly different than some of the others. Can you address that?
So, what I infer from your question is how the products will travel from one person to other, right? So, since like some of the college students own these luxurious items, but they don't wear it like every time, right? But the other people need them. They want to use them for some events. So that's where we came up with the idea that the people who are not using it but own it can rent it out to the other fellow students. That will help building connections as well, and also will fulfill the requirements for both of them, because even the student who is renting out needs money, right? So it will act as like extra source of income to them. This is basically Airbnb for luxury products.
Okay, very cool. And is this regionalized? So, for example, would there be like a UMass app, and it's people within the UMass group, college could or university can trade within, or like, what does the business model look like?
This app will have options like the universities will be listed. Like at Rate My Professors, the university is listed and the professors are listed below the university, right? So here the university name will be listed and your location will be tagged. So as soon as you click your university, you'll be connected to the market, the page that has the available products from that university itself. So the delivery charges and the delivery carbon emissions will be reduced because it's on campus. You can just walk to the person, take the item, and then return them like that.
That's neat.
Just to follow up on the localized thing, when you localize a marketplace, it makes it, which may be necessary in this case, it makes it harder to achieve enough scale so that you have product when someone comes to look, right? There's a tension there. And then...
So here we are not gonna only be limited to UMass. We'll have other universities on board as well.
Well, I know, but if the marketplace is UMass, when I want to rent something or I want to look at something and I'm looking at just the products available in UMass, it just makes it hard. You have to have a substantial inventory of products so that people come back and go, oh, it's worthwhile. And the more localized your market, the harder it is to achieve scale. I mean, if you focused on UMass right now, right? Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Versus the people that sell stuff across the country, it's a single marketplace, right?
Yeah.
And then you should ask yourself why the existing companies that are in this space don't focus on students and why they basically support, I believe most of them support you buy the stuff, right?
Yeah.
And the problem with renting is damage.
Yeah, so we'll have a solid plan for damage control, how we'll execute that, because the student have to put their credit cards on, right? So if the product is damaged, they'll be compensated. So the amount, a certain amount will be compensated from the credit card because of the damages. And secondly, as you said, the market is limited because it's limited to the university, right? So this will give opportunity to the students to like one-time purchase, because luxury items is just a liability. You don't get anything over it, right? So they can just purchase the item. Suppose like you're purchasing an Armani suit and you're not using it. So suppose it's for $2,000 and you're purchasing it. You can rent it out to other people for like $50, right? So if you do it like twice a month or thrice a month, you're earning like $150. You're earning on a liability. So that is certainly making it an asset for you, right? So like it's a win-win for both the students who are taking it and the students who are renting it out. So that's how we have planned to do it.
I think you've identified a need. I think that, and you're starting to, like in the questions here, but the idea of how you actually solve that in a, not a technical way, but in a way that, alterations with suits and, or damage, and if nothing else, you need to at least be able to address that and sort of incorporate that in your kind of pitch, because those are the things that are the pitfalls in this path, not so much the technology problem. Be interesting to think about, is there a unique matching problem or something you could do on that side to
Yeah,
make
for,
it easier?
for our premium users, we have planned that we'll show them a set of like entire apparel. So they can like rent out each items from different people if they want. And then they'll have an entire look for the day. So that is something we have planned for later, that we'll like use to attract more students to be our premium users. But that's something we'll do a little later after our minimal viable product is actually working out on the market.
So first off, nice job on the presentation. I know it's really hard to do this stuff. And this is a complex problem.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different moving parts, a lot of different parts into it. So let's just focus on a few things here, because this is a tech challenge, there's a tech part here. So I'm interested in how you think, let's just take the process of, I have a luxury item, and I wish to be able to put it up and rent it out. Tell me how that's going to work from the tech side of it.
So we propose that, first of all, there's an app. You have a platform on the app provides you with a platform where you can list items. The real pitfall we see here is authenticating the
I could fake that I have an Armani suit because I took
Yeah,
a picture of somebody
exactly.
else's. Yes.
authenticating whether it's really an Armani suit or not, which is a good question to ask us, but we're quite still figuring that out.
So now I have a way I need to take this information in. Photographs.
Yeah.
You'll store that.
Exactly.
I'll have that. I'll say how widely is it. It's obviously I need sizing information.
Yeah.
Especially something that was probably custom made for me. Probably won't fit a lot of
Yeah.
students. Okay, so there's lots of challenges there. Lots of different pieces, parts as you need to prototype this. So have you written any code yet for it?
No, we are yet
Okay.
to start.
Okay.
But to answer the question of authentication, here's a quick idea that I got. Like we have these tags behind our collars, right? That are one of the authenticating marks. So we'll ask the students who are listing up their items to post that. Also, if they have the bills, they can post the bills as well to authenticate the item. So that's how we'll initially start doing that. That's how we'll initially ask students to authenticate their items. Later on, we'll bring in some more complex things that will like actually work in authenticating. But these are the initial steps we are planning to do.
Okay. I do like you hit on an interesting piece in here of the marketplace of sustainability.
Yeah.
If you're familiar with Rent the Runway,
Yeah.
there's actually been a couple of interviews with the founder, and one of the things they found during the pandemic is sustainability became a much bigger emphasis for their customer base. So I do think that's a very important part of this, and showing a user how they're helping their carbon
Yeah.
footprint and other sustainability.
Can you talk about your plan for how like today is day zero. How long would it take to get the app, to a point where you can start to prototype it? What resources do you need for that?
So right now we have, as we have planned, we are still doing our market research. So we are like very into it, like doing all the market researches, going like visiting websites, looking into the stats, going and asking people, talking to people, and how they feel like they want to contribute to sustainability and eco-friendly practices. Also, we want to start working on it like by the start of the winter, and we are planning to come up with the MVP. If we raise funding, we are planning to come up with the MVP by the end of the summer, and then hopefully, like fingers crossed, we'll be able to do it. We'll be able to provide students of UMass, because these will be our first customers to like use the app and give us feedback. by the start of the next semester.
And do you have that expertise internally?
Internally, we have UMass is known for its CS, right? So
Sorry, I just mean between the two of you on your team. Do you have the product expertise on your team?
Sure, I'm a CS major. Coding is basically all I do for like 7 to 8 hours a week. So deploying an app is not really the difficult part here. It's more the gauging of the market and getting people what they want. Deploying an app is as simple as setting up a server, accepting requests, and making a front end.
So I would strongly suggest, I guess, this weekend is Hack UMass.
Yes,
This is
I
a
am
great
participating.
project to gather up some people and hack up at least parts of this, so you have a prototype to show.
All right, my name is Will Dugan, and I'm here with Awkward. Did you know that currently approximately 23,240,000 people suffer from social anxiety in the United States, according to the National Institute of Mental Health? Those who grow up with social anxiety oftentimes don't socialize with other people enough due to their anxiety. This leads to them not developing the critical social skills that they need to develop when they're younger, and this prevents them from reaching out more in the future. Not reaching out more in the future prevents them from challenging that social anxiety and developing the critical social skills and social confidence they need to be able to move forward in life in the future. The problem really comes down to that socially anxious people need a way for them to gain social skills. As Walter Anderson once said, nothing diminishes anxiety faster than action, and we couldn't possibly agree more, which is why we're proposing a solution is an app that helps users gain social skills, and this is what we're currently building. It has 3 components to it. The first component is that it is allowing users to connect and practice socializing with each other in a safe space with other people who are socially anxious. The second component is that it's artificial intelligence. It has an artificial intelligence tool that sits in the background and provides every user with feedback on how to improve their social skills based on how they're interacting with other users in the app. And the in-person component, which we're going to build out later on, will give users the ability to form location-based social skills groups such that they can bridge the gap between talking to strangers in the app and talking to strangers in person. So we pitched a year ago, and in case any of you have heard of us since then, this is some of our progress since then. In fall 2021, we launched after we won the second place at ULaunch. We then performed customer discovery and competed in the Innovation Challenge in last spring. This fall, we've begun the minimum viable product development, and in the spring, we expect in March, we will start MVP testing. We are on path for that, and we will start the machine learning model development. Our team right now consists of Kim and myself. Kim is in charge of software development, and he's built multiple full web applications from scratch to deployment. He has experience with several web development languages, as well as app development languages such as React Native. And I head the business development side. I've built 2 businesses in the past, and I've grown up in business. My parents own a small business. That has been my entire life, is being surrounded by business. So our artificial intelligence tool will really help users in 3 ways. The first way, which we view as almost the most critical way, is that it will guide users into conversations. When they get onto the app, it will tutorialize it, similar to how it tutorials in a game, step by step, except you will actually be starting to interact with other users, such that we can get users over this first hurdle of talking to other users on the app. And it'll be completely anonymous at first. As you start to talk to users and get more familiar with them throughout the conversations, their profile will slowly become more and more available to you and be able to learn more details about the person you're talking to, such that in the beginning it will be less confrontational. The second component is it'll provide users with feedback on what they have done so far, how they have communicated with people so far. And the third component is it'll provide users with suggestions for what they should do next, how to evolve their social skills and how to improve them going forward. Our competition really breaks down into 2 different categories. We have the social media companies and therapy. Our social media companies are probably our biggest competitors, and they really consist of the main platforms Facebook, Discord, Reddit, and Instagram, with the primary competitive component being the chat-based feature. Reddit, Discord, and Facebook are our biggest competitors in that area because you can form chat rooms or chat rooms similar interfaces on Reddit, and this will allow people who are socially anxious to be able to talk to each other. But the way we differentiate ourselves is that we actually help people develop social skills, and not just through a class-like structure or an educational structure, but through a learn from your mistakes model, or a trial and error approach like it would be in real life. We just expedite that model through the artificial intelligence. The therapy services is another way that people view our competitors, but we really stand out from them in that we are easily accessible and affordable. We are made such that you can access us at any point going forward and continuously throughout every day to be able to learn every day and improve your social skills every day. And it's affordable because it will be free. We have in-app ads that will generate us revenue so that every user can use it for free and access this tool. Our financials break down into that we expect that we'll need $5,000 to buy data to build the machine learning model. We'll need to pay $10,000 to have people train that data, or train the model using that data. And that's really where we expect our money to primarily go to. And we've so far won $700 at ULaunch Fall 2021 and $1,000 in, sorry about that typo, $1,000 in the minute pitch this this fall. So we actually just won about a month ago $1,000, and we won it through the impact, scalability, and feasibility of our idea. So going forward, we believe that we'll be able to actually reach a lot of people and be able to create a lot of change in how people actually socialize with one another using the technology that we can to be able to expedite the process of people learning from their mistakes. Thank you.
What is the AI actually going to do?
So the AI is going to monitor for every user. It's going to watch how they're talking to other users, how they're engaging, and it's a chat-based interface. And it will actually suggest, based on how they're talking to other users, how they can change their behavior going forward. And so the primary component in the beginning is conversational skills that are non-body language, just purely verbal skills. And then the idea is that you'll be able to bridge it with the in-person location-based social skills groups.
Well, okay, but so you have an AI monitoring your chat, kind of like Grammarly would do your writing.
Yes.
Right? And then, but what is the AI looking for in the chat, and what type of feedback is it actually going to provide? Is it suggestions? Is it, I mean, like suggestions on what to say or temperament? What?
Just give an example.
So in the beginning, we're going to start off with very basic things, such as, you know, maybe somebody's not responding and you've texted like 4 or 5 times and they still haven't responded. It'll be like, hey, don't text them so much, give it a little bit of a break. As we can develop going forward, and we get more data to train it, we'll work on tonality and phrasing. And but in the beginning, it'll be primarily based on just certain actions and keywords that we're going to be looking for, and we'll evolve from that point going forward.
What's your background?
So I have experience in business. I've grown up in business, but I also have a bit of experience working in software development. I was going to be a computer science major in high school. I took a few courses in college level. I just realized that was not for me, and that I wanted to use it as a tool for entrepreneurship instead.
Okay. Because it does seem that you've identified an interesting area, and there's opportunities in terms of training, kind of modeling behavior, practice.
Yep.
Sort of feedback. Depending on each of those scenarios, you have sort of different technical challenges, like conversation threads and all kinds of things, like, or what are you trying to do? Get a job, date somebody, you know.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of different aspects, and I think being able to articulate that or think through, it's almost like that's a giant matrix. You have all sorts of social situations and different ways I can help them. Where's the focus?
So our primary target audience are high schoolers and college students. The ages group of 15 to 29-year-olds is really where we're zoning in on. And the primary focus is on making friends. The ability to be able to just socialize in everyday casual interactions that will allow you to make friends and be able to just talk to people around you. So no focus on like jobs or interviews or anything like that, just on very basic social skills, because it's really for people who have really intense social anxiety.
Okay, so I must admit, when I first heard you presenting, I was thinking about the interactions. I was thinking it'd be like video, you'd be videoing with somebody, but you're going to start with a chat-based interface.
So we need to start with a chat-based interface to be able to develop enough data and build the model out enough, and then the goal is to then evolve into audio and then into video calls.
Okay, and populating that machine learning, you said you would be buying some data for that. Can you tell me about that?
Yes, so we want to be able to buy large data sets so that we can go through and get text messages that we can go through and use to train the machine learning model. And the easiest way to do that is to be able to purchase that. At the end of the day, if we don't have that funding, we can still do it by web scraping and just going through and cleaning that data. It'll just be much more time consuming to do that. So the first approach we're looking at is to be able to buy the data. There are large data sets we can buy online. The other approach we're looking at is trying to find college students that have 2-person conversations, paying each person, say, $50 to be able to access their entire conversation, anonymizing it, and then using those text messages to be able to train the model as well.
Can you walk me through an example? If I'm a college student and I'm trying to sign, day one, I want to sign this up, sign myself up. am I sitting in my college dorm room learning, or am I taking this around when I'm actually having conversations? Can you explain that a little bit more?
So wherever you are, you can set it up, and you'll just be talking remotely over this text-based interface. But when you sign up, the first thing that it'll do is it'll get your interests, and then the second thing it'll do is it'll ask you if you're comfortable giving your location, so that it'll connect you to people closer to your location, such that you can try to eventually build these skills with people who might be in the location-based social skills groups, and you'd be more comfortable going to those groups and practicing bridging that gap. But you'll start off filling out your interests so that we can match you with people who are more similar to you, your location, if you're comfortable giving that, to match you with people similar to you, and then you'll just start texting people on the app.
So is it to make friends, or is it to gain confidence to make friends?
To gain confidence, to make friends. You may never talk to these people again, and in the beginning they're completely anonymous. The whole purpose is just that you're talking to another human, such that you can get that experience practicing, and then you can get that feedback to accelerate the learning from your mistakes model.
Okay, so you're both practicing. So does the app
Yes.
match you with two people who are on that
Both
app?
people are socially anxious, and both people are getting different feedback based on how they're interacting.
Okay, and how do you make sure that the app is providing the right guidance?
So we are starting to consult with therapists and social psychologists to be able to evaluate the skills that we need to be able to have in there. In the beginning, it's just going to be very basic things, but as we can evolve from there, it'll really depend on having those social psychologists there, which is why we're starting to network with them. We're also working with social worker students at Smith and at UMass. We're trying to build those connections such that we can have students who want credit to come and work with us.
Do you have any evidence or just to continue what you just said in terms of therapists and stuff, of what the actual barriers for people with intense social anxiety to engaging? Is it not knowing what to say? I mean, because a lot of times it's fear of failure, or I'm not sure, that's not my, but what that actual problem is, because it seems like there has to be some way of overcoming that first step.
Yeah. So when people are really young, it usually is that they are really worried about failure. As they get older, their fear of failure really comes to the fact that they don't know what to say, they don't know what social skills to put out there, and so they're afraid that they're going to be rejected because they can't socialize in the right way. And so we've talked to several psychologists at Mass General Hospital. We've also talked to a psychologist in the local area, but we've also done customer discovery interviews, and we found a lot of people with social anxiety have said that social skills would be very helpful for them to be able to overcome their social anxiety and challenge that.
So it's kind of for maybe a severe version of I'm terrible at small talk kind of problem, right? Like that.
Yes. Like I need to know where to start when I go up and talk to somebody, so that way I can get going.
Okay. I think I like the idea of the two-person thing. I think kind of mapping through like how someone might go from being, really troubled by this,
Yep.
to how they might use your app or service to overcome it. And there might be several stages, like I said, modeling, practice with another person,
Yeah.
and then sort of monitoring or something like that. That idea of kind of I think using whatever the appropriate analogies would be good, whether it's like Grammarly or Google Autocomplete, or because there are some things here that are, or GPT-2,
Yeah.
the conversation, the natural language stuff.
We will
that
be more comparable.
might
to
help
Grammarly.
people understand where the technology and where you're headed.
Yeah, so we're more comparable to Grammarly in the sense that we're trying to monitor tonality, your phrasing, and the keywords you're using, such that we can kind of convey how you're saying what you want to say, and work from there.
There is a UMass computer science group.
Yes.
From a few years ago that did a whole thing on analyzing speech and tonality and.
Yeah, so we're working to reach out to them right now.
Okay.
We're also working for trying to get started in the beginning to acquire these people, to address that concern that how people end up getting to our app and starting to use it going forward. We're trying to work with a group on campus that's about communications to get them to send out an email going forward that will address the fact that we have this app, and to get anybody who is socially anxious to start using it. And then we're looking at a viral engine of growth. We're also looking to partner with a lot of therapy centers in the area to try to get them to recommend it. If we can start getting people to prove that this is effective for them and get people to vouch for it, then we can get these therapy centers to also suggest it, since it'll be a free option.
I'm going to do something different here, which is I'm going to ask a business question, but it has a technical bent. You said that your business model is we sell advertising on this.
Yes.
What kind of advertisers would you think would be interested in this, and how would they hook up to that platform?
So we're primarily looking at the Facebook ads platform and the Google ads platform. We think that Facebook would be very interested in this because they're a social network, and so they might be very interested in talking to people who are of a subsection of their social network, of the people who are socially anxious. They could target that very specifically. The other aspect we're looking at with Google is that they might be able to market specifically to these people that are very socially anxious. It's a very niche audience, and they can make a lot of money on the cost per click because it'd be so targeted.
Okay, and what I'm not thinking in my mind of what kind of advertisers that would be.
I think that would
Your competitors?
I think that'd probably be honestly therapy centers and psychiatrists and such. That's where we kind of see that as local therapists and psychiatrists that want to get more patients.
I mean, I think if you could demonstrate some actually, like, differentiated benefit here, you know, I think you could go beyond an ad-supported model, especially early, and things like guidance counselors or like that late elementary school, middle school, high school thing is there's a lot of people looking for help there, and you have the initiative. I think you did a good job of talking about that. About how, as you get older, you overcome one problem, and now it's a practice problem.
Yeah.
So,
Be careful under 18, though.
I
Yeah.
appreciate the feedback. I'd love to respond to it, but I'm not.
Hello, judges. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my pitch today. I first want to start with why I'm here, right? Over the past few months, it's come to my attention of the growing water crisis, that's happening across the United States and across the world. And, really the catalyst that's brought me here today is the water crisis happening in Jackson, Mississippi currently. And these two are pictures of water coming out of faucets, black water, dirty water that's not healthy for the residents there. And also reminded me of the water crisis that happened in Flint, Michigan a few years back. And, this is a really serious problem. And it's not just a matter of thirst, there's severe public health, economic, and societal impacts of water scarcity. This young boy was affected by cholera, and this young boy was affected by typhoid fever. And the fact that we allow this to happen to our children and families in society it just doesn't sit right with me. And so that's why at Miracle Water, we believe that anybody, regardless of socioeconomic status, should have clean water to drink. And the way we're going to do that is through the power of the atmospheric water generator. The atmospheric water generator works by drawing moist air into the system, and then it's cooled via refrigerants in the coils. And then once the moist air is cooled, the water in the air condenses and falls into this tub below. And then an ozone generator pumps ozone to kill the bacteria in the water. And then the water is cycled through multiple water filters, so it ends up being very clean and safe to drink. There are a lot of competitors on the market too. There are a lot of atmospheric water generator companies out there, and a lot of the time they market themselves based on their patented technology and the health benefits of drinking clean water. And bottled water companies are also pursuing a similar strategy where they advertise the health benefits of their water. And consumers oftentimes will purchase bottled water as a replacement for their tap water because they don't want to drink their dirty tap water. And so our plan to differentiate from these competitors is making our AWG more affordable because a lot of the AWGs on the market are very expensive right now. And more environmentally sustainable by relying on new renewable energy because a lot of the AWGs on the market rely on electricity from the grid, which contributes to climate change. And climate change is one of the main drivers of the water crisis. And then we'll also focus on building strong customer relationships and efficient logistics systems to save time and money. The way we're going to achieve all those criteria that I just mentioned is by partnering with professors in relevant fields, so Eisenberg School of Management, as well as the College of Engineering, and then also work with clubs associated on campus with these relevant fields to get free help so we don't have to go to outside sources. When it comes to capital requirements, our estimates put funding at roughly $10,000 to $15,000. We're going to need roughly $10,000 to $15,000 to form a prototype, and I came up with that figure by calculating the total cost of a prototype and also factoring in potentially hiring a professional engineer to help with the prototyping, though I mentioned campus resources may be sufficient. And assuming we have multiple iterations, it should come out to about $10,000 to $15,000. And so it really comes back to why, right? You know, scientists are saying that, you know, we're probably not going to hit the 1.5 degrees Celsius benchmark. And, you know, climate change has made the weather patterns much more unpredictable, unreliable, and that is causing water scarcity in a lot of new regions in the world. And I think it's of utmost importance that, you know, people have clean water to drink and they avoid the diseases that are associated with dirty water. So, you know, my intention is to build a product that is cheaper, relies on renewables, and is overall better than the competitors. And I hope you believe what I believe, that everyone should have clean water to drink. Thank you.
I think this is your specialty.
I'll let everybody else speak too, but yes, I live this world every day. Okay, so a question, so many questions. How are you, first of all, what's the stage of the maturity of the product?
Yeah, so we just finished the ideation phase and we're ready to move into the prototyping phase.
How did you make the decision of the filters and the treatment inside of the product?
So like which filters to use? Or?
Yeah, like I think you said UV, ozone, GAC.
Yeah.
There are a lot of types of water treatment.
Yeah, absolutely. So the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, actually did a study on the leader in the market right now, which is WaterGen. And they said that WaterGen's, like their baseline filters, so that would include membrane filters and carbon filters, help remove a lot of the impurities. But they also recommend that that they add an ozone generator to kill off heterotrophic bacteria, right? Because the heterotrophic bacteria need to eat other things to survive, and if they get into humans, we don't want them eating humans, right? So, yeah.
Do you have an idea of how you're going to control like the amount of ozone that's dosed into the system? This is a really specific question, but I think it's really important, actually. Because
Yeah,
you don't want too
absolutely.
much. You don't want people to drink a lot of ozone.
Yeah, absolutely. I would have to look into, you know, if there's any negative health impacts from ozone. I know that UV light can also, when it's shined onto water, produce ozone, and I'm assuming it will be within safe amounts, if that makes sense.
I had more of an engineering question,
Sure.
So what's the energy requirements to produce a gallon of water? Because this is basically a dehumidifier,
Yeah.
right? I can go to
So,
Home Depot and do this.
yeah, exactly. It is basically a dehumidifier, but with the purification systems. Roughly, I was looking at multiple figures. Obviously, you know, once we are done with the prototyping phase, we'll be more certain about this, but I believe 2 kilowatts an hour, something in that ballpark. And so, you know, that's for like an individual unit that produces roughly 8 gallons a day. So, you know,
2 kilowatts an hour, so I'm interested in basically the cost per gallon, and whether, you know, like a renewable or a solar panel could produce a useful amount of water. And
right.
because I don't think you're proposing, it would be really novel if you could figure out a way to improve the efficiency of, say, a dehumidifier by
Right.
factor of 2 or 50% or anything.
Yeah.
So I think you need to look at the there's a fundamental thermodynamic problem here,
Right, right,
which you need to either figure out a way around,
right.
or at least have a good assessment of what the energy requirements and cost, and whether renewable can power a dehumidifier. The other thing is just locality.
Right.
In the sense that in some parts of the country,
Yeah.
taking water out of the air, or some trying to do that in the winter in New England is not very efficient.
Yep.
Um,
Right on.
So understanding that. Do you have anything on the first part, though, the engineering or the?
When it comes
You
to
don't
like
need
cost
cost.
per gallon,
Yeah.
yeah. So cost per gallon should be roughly 5 cents a liter. Actually, I was looking at some numbers online. It should be 5 cents a liter, I believe. So that's factoring in energy cost, of course, and cost of the product itself. To your second point about environment, absolutely. So when it comes to target markets and customers, we're mainly focused on subtropical climates, so that would include southern United States. California is a great example of this, and then desert climates. And when it comes to colder climates, a lot of times water scarcity is not really present there anyways, because they get their water from mountains and snow. Like in New England, we get most of our water from snow, right? And so by focusing on areas where disease is more prevalent, so Latin America, India, and then southern United States, will be actively targeting the problem at hand.
Your efficiency is going to depend on the relative humidity in the water, in the air, isn't it?
Yeah.
So in a desert, your water could cost
Yeah.
10 times more?
So I'm not sure as to the exact figures, but I've seen information online that suggests that an atmospheric water generator can produce significant amount of water, though it's not going to be as efficient, produce as much water as like a subtropical climate or a tropical climate. It still produces enough water, like a significant number.
So nice job on the presentation. Good on the why. The challenges with your prototype, and I think you're already starting to hear them, and you know some of them, is there's some limits here, right? The existing technology will get you this many liters per dollar and per time, and you will need to figure out how to do that better. I think you have a right idea of trying to push on those edges, because this is not something that many have looked too hard at, although I don't know, with water there's a lot of people looking at the problem. So figuring out easy ways to bring a bunch of it together. Again, I would emphasize your prototyping. What's your major and background?
I'm a business major.
Business major, okay. So you need to enlist some engineers.
Yeah, I definitely, my intention is to gain as much relevant knowledge in this area.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hang out in maker spaces and go to Hack UMass.
UMass, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Because there may be some technical ways to do this that you can get into as you start brainstorm more. Because as pointed out, you essentially talked about a dehumidifier.
Right.
Right. So now how can you do that in a more efficient way? And she knows her stuff about water, so ask her questions about disinfecting.
Yeah. I would also try and hang out in the civil environmental group.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're the experts here. When you want it, I'm happy to talk a lot more about this. There's a lot of other startups that are trying to do this. Off the top of my head, I know of 3.
Yeah.
And I think what you really want to do is hone in on what the value proposition is for the specific product and exactly who your customer is. Because it's going to change your pricing model, it's going to change so many things, it's going to change the level of purity depending on who it is. I would say, just looking at kind of briefly the schematic, there's a lot of moving parts to that. It's going to be a lot to manage. So the more you can hone in on that customer and really what the value proposition is, the more you can get smarter on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think there's also use scenarios here. Like, is it emergency? The nice thing with taking water out of the air is, the air is pretty much the same everywhere, right? Maybe except for forest fires.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But so is it emergency use? So what time period? And then there's a lot of ways to innovate. I mean, it could be, look, there's a lot of progress in this area. We're going to take the best available technology, but we're going to innovate on the delivery side, or by merging it with filtration and something else. But you at least need to know what the state of the art is, and kind of the rough kind of efficiency and cost metrics. But, you know, you get that idea of like emergency? You can imagine like FEMA shows up with a couple of these things on the back of a truck and they get instant water. They don't even have to plug in to a dirty river somewhere. So there's some interesting things. I think if you can start to tease out from your gigantic problem that you described and get a little more like, this is where we're going to focus, partly the solutions to the technical side might actually start to come out of that too.
Right.
Because trying to solve this for the world, that's a huge problem with infinite moving parts. Where if
Boiling
you
an
could,
ocean is an appropriate metaphor for
boiling an ocean, exactly, yeah.
I was talking about this last night with somebody, and yeah, definitely intention is to, like you said, target more like niche customers, if that makes sense. Like WaterGen, the leader right now, is focusing on people who go off the grid, so trucking, for example, and people who go off in boats, the fish, for example. When they are able to harness water from the air, they're able to stay out there longer.
But like, if you're on a boat, you're going to use a saltwater water maker, which is, they've made huge improvements in the efficiency of those systems in the last 10, 15 years. You can now, because they recover, do pressure recovery and all, I don't know that much about it. I'm a sailor, but I don't. And these things used to be incredibly energy inefficient, expensive, and there've been breakthroughs. I don't know exactly what they are.
Find your who and what they want, and then you might get in more on the particulars of what they need. Yeah.
Awesome.
All right,
Well,
thank you.
thank you so much.
Hi, we are Glow Safely, the newest innovation in traffic safety and engineering technology. So Glow Safety is a low-cost alternative that lights the path of vulnerable roadway users. By using motion sensor technology and LED lights, drivers can be more aware of the exact location of pedestrians on crosswalks and bicyclists in bike lanes. So we are a group of transportation graduate students as well as one electrical engineering undergraduate student, and we have broad research backgrounds and career backgrounds. So my name is Angelina, and I'm a first-year master's student in transportation engineering, and I have background in traffic safety and intelligent transportation systems.
My name's Holly. I'm a first-year master's student in transportation engineering with experience in traffic safety and intersections.
My name is Faye. I'm a PhD candidate in civil engineering, and in my research I focus on traffic operations and management.
My name's Andy, and I'm a third-year electrical engineering student, and I have experience in embedded systems and robotics.
So why do we care? Why does this matter? What should you guys care about? Every day in the US, headlines such as these are popping up. How many is too many? Pedestrians' lives should not be the cost of our unsafe roadways. And you might be sitting there saying, this won't happen to me, won't happen to someone I know. 3 times this year it's happened right here on our campus. It has also happened 10 times in the past 4 years. According to the National Highway Traffic Safety Association, 76% of all pedestrian fatalities happen in dark roadways. Lightings on our roadways are the issue, and we need to fix them.
So the ultimate goal is the Vision Zero. Vision Zero nowadays for the transportation engineers is a global movement that try to end up with the traffic-related injuries and deaths. And what we're trying to do is accept only zero number of them, and we're trying to prevent them.
So how many of you recognize the intersection shown on the right side of the screen? This is the crossing right by the Fine Arts Center. And there's a rectangular rapid flashing beacon located at this location. But how many of you drive past this crosswalk and the pedestrians do not actuate the signal? They just walk right across the street. So the value of our venture increases the visibility of pedestrians by automatically illuminating them and showing their exact location along the roadway as opposed to the side of the roadway.
Current traffic safety countermeasures are the rectangular rapid flashing beacon, which you just saw, pedestrian hybrid beacon, speed bump, and street lights. Both the RRFB and PHB are large in our roadway, and they're kind of an eyesore. You don't want to look at them. They're also expensive, and they require pedestrian actuation and roadway user understanding, whereas Glow Safely does not.
This is an example of a similar device in Korea that uses thermal imaging detection to light up the crosswalk. The key difference is that all of these lights light up at the exact same time and flash aggressively all along the whole crosswalk. Similarly, here's an example in China that does not use automated detection to light the roadway, and both of these have not been talked about in the media much in the past few years.
So our market plan starts by introducing our idea to the audience through workshops, conference exhibitions, and other webinars. The target market includes any kind of agency that focuses on construction and traffic devices and promotes road safety, such as the departments of transportation. And we also aim to advance any research related to LED devices, as well as study further the driver's understanding and the level of yielding comparing to the Glow Safely, which we introduced today, and other existing devices.
One of the major pros of our Glow Safely system is its low cost for implementation. We expect the total cost to be around $450 plus installation costs, which we estimate to be a few $1,000s per crosswalk or per 30-foot section of bike lane.
So why are we different from the competitors? Like we previously mentioned, the automatic detection has a unique pattern of flashing lights that lets drivers know the exact location of a bicyclist or a pedestrian. All of us have a vast understanding of innovation and research, and so that prompted our motivation for this project. And we can expand this to be applied to flex posts that divide bike lanes from traffic lanes.
How might we be able to do this? As transportation students, we have access to the UMTC, MassDOT, and companies such as Ocean State Signal, who have alumni working for them. We are able to use all of these companies to go through different conferences and get access to transportation devices and help with creating them. Thank you, and we are now ready for any questions.
So nice presentation. So just to make sure I understand what it is you're really building, I embed several LEDs in the crosswalk, and you have a sensor that says when I come up to the crosswalk, it will start lighting those up, or it will put my position in there. I'm not clear about that piece.
Yeah, so we actually have this prototype here, so we can kind of show you the idea of how it's going to work.
Great, thank you.
What we have here, so there's a microcontroller here which does all the processing. This is an ultrasonic sensor, so it uses sound to measure distances. And this would be like what's in the roadway here with the LEDs.
Okay.
And this phone right here is going to model the person. If I can turn it on.
Of course, the prototype working on while you got it is always the key question.
But the idea is as the pedestrian is walking across
Using the sonar to
the sensors will be aware of where they are, and the light that is right next to them will be flashing. The other ones will dim out. So it's basically allowing other roadway users to see exactly where they are in that crosswalk.
And the sensor would be on like the pole, and then the lights are
Basically, like on a crosswalk, how it's like the white stripes, the lights would be like lined up with those, and the sensors would be on the other on the sidewalks on like a little pole.
You're starting to get there.
As the person enters the region of the crosswalk, the whole crosswalk will light up like that. And then as they're walking through it, the light closest to where they are walking will start flashing like that.
Okay, got it.
So it'll draw the driver's attention to where the light is flashing so they know exactly where the person is.
So the research, you have research that shows that method of flashing a light where a person would be is adequate, or what?
So research in that area is currently lacking. There is a gap between innovative technologies and the probability or the likelihood that it would increase the driver yielding rate. This was actually a proposal by my advisor to make detection technology my thesis next year, and understand the key differences in is automated detection going to be as beneficial as we say it is, because like the crosswalk I showed at the Fine Arts Center, college students don't want to press the button. They see a car, they're like, oh, they see me, I'm okay, I can cross the road. But so we can set up a simulation in the Human Performance Lab, and we can actually detect the eye movement of drivers and detect, oh, are their eyes actually going to the pedestrian on the roadway, as opposed to an RRFB where it flashes on either side of the roadway.
Excellent. What's the next step in your product roadmap?
Sorry?
What's the next step in your product iteration?
So our goal is to connect further with companies like Ocean State Signal, who is a leading developer in traffic engineering technology, and we would build a more advanced prototype to implement and have a bigger prototype, understand the costs a bit more, the installation costs, and partner with more agencies. That would be our next goal.
What types of resources do you need for that?
Sorry?
What types of resources do you need for that?
So we would definitely, here, you want to take that?
Yeah, so I think the first thing is we want to foster more like company connections, industry connections by going to conferences and that sort of networking. But then also from like the physical resources and hardware, we'd want to get more advanced sensors. So right now, this is an ultrasonic sensor. It's just like, it's a relatively cheap one. It's meant for prototyping. So we'd want to get a more advanced LiDAR sensor, more industrial microcontrollers, and the proper LEDs that would be used on an actual roadway. Kind of like, yeah.
So UMass has I think you referred to it, a simulation lab, right? Have you thought about actually like doing like a CG, computer graphics simulation of this? Because if nothing else, like a video showing how you would transform problematic intersections is interesting. I think the pedestrian story is interesting. I'm from near Boston, and they're installing bike lanes, and there are some classic ones where there's still huge problems.
Yeah.
So ways to, like some way of both testing and then having a animation of how you would transform those would be amazing.
So exactly that, like I previously briefly touched on, we can create a simulation in the driving simulator, and we can actually get participants to get in the simulator, start driving. We can simulate the flashing lights and simulate a pedestrian that would be crossing the road, or a bike in a bike lane, and you can detect where the eye movements go of the driver. Are they on the pedestrian? Are they on the bicyclist? Did they yield? Do they slow down as they're crossing? Additionally, like a device like this will increase or reduce the congestion associated with other devices like a pedestrian hybrid beacon like we previously showed. Drivers are required to stop at that device, but at devices like this and rectangular rapid flashing beacons, a driver just has to yield to a pedestrian and then they can continue on their route.
This also would seem like once you figure it out, because it's kind of got an active thing, there could be a patent
Yeah, definitely.
Opportunity. And you alluded to in the writing about objections to this, like because this would take maybe some significant, you're cutting the road open and putting devices in and snow plows and the whole thing.
Yeah, so New England plow drivers do not like anything in the pavement, which is also why further research would be needed on the type of device. So you can epoxy devices to the pavement, but again, plow drivers don't like that. And you can cut open the pavement and put something flush beneath it, but it has this wear and tear on the roadway. So more research on the types of in-pavement LEDs would be needed to decide which products to purchase for the implementation of this.
Yeah. The interesting thing today is you can essentially make an LED a film. Be interesting to see if you could make one that would be almost indistinguishable from the thick reflective paint that they put in pavement. Or I don't know if someone else pursued this, but the idea of even a projector. I believe somewhere in Japan they actually have there's a projector that they mount on the light pole, and it actually shows little walk spots that go across the walkway.
Yeah, so we definitely looked into other devices like that and other technologies that people are implementing because we mentioned this in the interview with the social media team, but the idea sort of stemmed about from a different competition that we were planning on entering, but we did not meet the deadline since it was at the beginning of the semester and it got away from us, so we thought we'd adapt this for this competition. And we did look into using lasers or using projectors or what else did we... The projector one was something we thought about because Faye is from Greece and she said they have similar devices in Greece.
So this is great. What I would also suggest Hack UMass is this weekend. You can play around with a bunch of different devices and things. Getting small amounts of money to try and test different devices, I think, is useful for the developing your innovation in that. I think you've got the right idea of testing it well, too.
Yeah, and I would echo the intellectual property discussion too. You probably want to think about what a patent would look like if you do want to patent this.
Are any of you fellows? I'm sorry. Do you have a fellowship? So you're not UMass employees? Okay.
So yeah, myself and Faye are research students.
Research. So you're employees of the university. So you should talk to the tech transfer office about some of that piece. And some of you, there's maybe some way you can do it so the university doesn't own all of it, but some.
Right. Because the interesting thing is the idea of a sensor then activating things in a certain way, and you should at least know whether that's novel. Then you can work on the actual, you could then extend it if you figure out the best way of the actual indication, whether it's an LED or whatever. I think your sweet spot, at least right now, is this idea of being able to test it out with the driver simulation lab and trying to find some sort of common sensor component idea that does pedestrians and bicycles. The bicycle thing is driving, I know, public works departments absolutely insane because they feel like pedestrians, they got so many different solutions that if everyone does what they're supposed to, it should be okay. With bikes, it's still a nightmare. And even just the indication, all of a sudden you see these posts show up and you're not sure what's supposed to happen. And potentially even the integration between the two of them, right? All of a sudden the pedestrian walkway becomes part of the bike lane. And so I think you got something really interesting.
Yes, definitely. Thank you. And
hello, everyone. My name is Vikram Singh. I'm a computer science and mathematics major here at UMass Amherst. Today I'm going to be presenting my mobile application pull-up study groups, which I call the future of academic success and networking. So I want to first start by introducing the problem that we're dealing with. I want you to imagine that you're back in college as a freshman or sophomore, and it's the first day of school. You're excited to go to class for the first time and introduce yourself to the people next to you. You get there 5 minutes early, but there's one problem. You're terrified of the fear of rejection and judgment from the people around you, and so you're hesitant to introduce yourself to the person sitting next to you. By the time you finally work up the courage to introduce yourself, the professor interrupts you as they start lecture. This scenario is all too real to students all around the world. We find it very difficult to connect with people, especially students who are next to us in class, just due to the fear of rejection and judgment. So we're targeting people who A, have a fear of rejection and judgment, B, desire to succeed academically, and C, desire to build connections. And this pretty much describes every college student ever. So we're pretty much targeting college students. Studies show that there's a 71% correlation between social engagement and academic engagement, but despite this fact, 53% of students report feeling lonely, and less than 23% of undergraduate students at UMass feel very connected to their university community. Don't fret, there is a solution. My app, Pull-Up Study Groups, introduces a platform for students to find and create real-world, location-based study groups, allowing them to connect live in person. We also offer an academic social media aspect of our application, still allowing students to connect virtually, but also making it easier for them to connect in person in the future. And lastly, we put a huge emphasis on privacy and security. We're dealing with location data and personal data, such as the courses that users are enrolled in and their name and email. So the main user flow is as follows. First, the student has to sign up for an account with Pull-Up Study Groups by using a valid .edu email address and verifying that email address via a link that's sent to their account. Once they've gone through the authentication step, they then get to the main user flow. On the initial screen you can see on the left, they first have to pick the courses that they're enrolled in, and then if there isn't a course that's available on the screen, they can add a course using the form on the second screen. Once they've added all the courses that they're enrolled in, they can make their way to the session map screen, which essentially is a map that shows all of the study groups for the classes that they're enrolled in. So you can see that the user here is enrolled in CS 197S and 186. And there are currently 2 study groups that are open and available that other people have created for them to join. If there isn't a study group that meets the user's needs, they can create their own study group by specifying some details like what they're working on, specific location details, the class that they're studying for, and when they're going to leave. When a user creates a new study group, it will essentially drop a pin on the map for all of the other students who are enrolled in the class that they selected when they filled out the form. And this way, users can make their way to the study group in real time and collaborate in person. So you might be wondering, how feasible and how accomplishable is this project? Well, the answer is 100%. I actually developed a fully working minimum viable product prototype at last year's Hack UMass event, where out of 700 participants, I won Best Mobile Application and Best Use of Google Cloud. Not only that, but I worked on this project for a couple months afterwards, and we're actually already on the App Store. Now, it was released to the App Store in January 2022, and despite the fact that it has an old design and no active users, it's much easier to make updates to an application already on the App Store than it is to publish a new one. So we've kind of already breached the floodgates. So what now? We're dividing the project into 3 stages: the building stage, the growth stage, and the profitability stage. We want to focus mainly on, in the building stage, accessibility, so making sure that our app is usable for everyone, and also we want to add a feature to make sure that anyone, regardless of who they might be, can find a study group for them. So we want to add a feature that allows for the creation of specific study groups for accessible students. Next is push notifications. We want to give people the ability to interact with the platform passively. This will drive user traffic. So you can imagine if someone in your class creates a study group, it will send you a notification and you'll be able to join them. The next stage is growth. So we want to start small with the UMass community, specifically undergraduates, STEM majors, computer science, and one specific CS class. It makes sense to have a more narrow audience for this application because then you have more people that can join a particular study group. And then we can expand outwards. We also want to connect with the UMass community by starting a grassroots campaign, giving away branded merchandise on campus, and just overall creating a general connection with the community. And the last stage is profitability. So we want to run ads on the application for tutoring services or anything else that people might want to advertise. And lastly, we can charge a monthly or annual fee for access to the Pull-Up network. Thank you. Any questions?
Okay. So good presentation. Gotta watch the time there.
Yeah.
So you said you did this before, right? Gotten awards. You got it in the App Store, but you got no users. Why didn't you have any users?
Well, personally, I just don't think that the product that I publish on the App Store is enough to retain users. So I feel that if we had...
But if you had 0 users, I mean, how many downloads versus users, I should ask?
I didn't really advertise the application, so I believe we had like 5 downloads, and I think most of them were like my friends.
You told about it.
Yeah, so we didn't really have a user base to begin with.
Okay.
I more so just wanted to get it up there so that in the future when I make improvements, we can just push the updates.
Okay. And it's been around now for a year, so
yes.
It looks like it's got to do.
Yeah.
So why you think you didn't have any users out of that? Just that the app wasn't ready for it? You didn't do the right things? What are any specific things that you felt like you missed in that?
Yeah, so there are a couple things that I mentioned in the slideshow that I haven't implemented yet. So I mentioned like the academic social media component, or the ability, I guess, to like add friends and see their study group specifically. That's something that I would want to have before I start expanding the user base, along with things like a chat feature. So if you're joining a study group, it's good to have a chat for each study group in case you need to find like specific location details or you need to communicate with students. That's something that I thought would be important before we start reaching out and trying to spread the wildfire of the application.
And since this is a tech challenge, what is the most challenging part of the tech?
Well, I would say first and foremost, as I mentioned, the social media aspect of the application, it's always difficult to deal with that. One, because you have to deal with privacy issues and authentication, and also just like creating a social media app in general requires a lot of, I don't know exactly what the right word is, but we have to work with like Google Cloud's Firebase. We want to implement a backend. So just sort of having all of these individual components and trying to connect them together, the integration, if you will, is probably the most difficult part.
Who else is on the team? Is it just you?
It's just me. So I built the project at Hack UMass with 3 other people. To be honest, they didn't really contribute much, so it's pretty much just me.
Okay, that's fine. As a female, I'd be curious to see if you've thought about safety and meeting up and just making sure that it's a safe work group.
Yeah, so in terms of the safety aspects so far that we've created, as I mentioned before, users have to sign up with a valid EDU email address, and they have to verify that address before they can have access to the network. So only students have access to the network unless, professional staff with an EDU email address can also access the network. I haven't thought much in terms of safety in general regarding just location data or with the app, you'd be able to see where people are in real time. I think one of the things we want to work on is being able to specify who you want to show your study groups to. So if you create a study group with the addition of the social media aspect, you will have the option to only show it to your friends on the application, or only show it to a limited number of users per se.
I wonder if sort of like when Lyft and Uber, after you have a successful ride, you rate the driver and the driver will sort of rate you. I wonder if there would be some kind of accountability thing,
That's actually
implemented.
a really good idea. I'll keep that in mind.
Great.
I think it's an interesting idea. The one thing I wonder is whether you couldn't test this in kind of a semi-sponsored way with a small group, whether it's a class you're in or a department or just having, sometimes some professors are very much, look, you guys should reach out and they endorse working together. This would be a way of trying to facilitate that. Because if you could get, let's say, 50 or even a couple of hundred users and really work through, is the big payoff the in-person kind of meetup kind of thing? Is it the virtual chat? Is it, is it really planning we're going to meet, or is it actually supporting the exchange of information? Where there might be some tolerance about things not being really slick would be incredibly valuable, because if you could show this is how people use it and this is the ratings they get, even if it's from a relatively small number of people, now your step to turning this into a real product, real business would be fairly short. Without that, and then it would be interesting to look at the alternatives. I don't think there's any direct competitor to specifically what you're doing. Maybe, I don't know.
Actually, I have a couple slides that I took out for time.
Okay.
But who we're competing with, social media obviously in general. Personally, I don't think social media platforms make it as accessible as we do. It requires a lot of extra steps to be able to create a study group. Natural in-person connection, as I explained before. People are terrified of being judged. And lastly, students generally don't enjoy using academic platforms like Blackboard or Piazza. So I think we're good on that front.
So I think one of the things you want to get out of this is as Steve's point, being able to test it. What's an interesting metric is you want to be able to say, students who use this platform to get into study groups had this much higher academic scores, right? Then you have a clear understanding of the results. You have something that is saleable. Then it becomes less, your model right now for getting money is more advertising or what? Okay. But this is something where, a student might be willing to pay $5 for it in the App Store or that sort of thing, where you can get, they see value and you can actually show that value as in improved test scores or improved ratings. And I think the right idea, you already were talking about that. Find one of your CS classes, talk to the professor before the beginning of the semester, say, hey, can we use this? And see what they say. Absolutely. And that would be a cool way to do it.
And improvements in grades would be great, and if you could document it, but even usually just repeated engagement is enough, because that means someone got benefit out of it, or there was perceived benefit. And that's actually, from an economic standpoint, probably more important than the improvement in grades. Right. But and then also with the whole location thing, that's going to raise all sorts of red flags with people. So one thing is you can just change it the way you refer to it as like, you can do pin drops to a meetup
Yeah.
location and just avoid the whole thing of any kind of tracking or I'm here or things like that. Just your conversation with people you'll end up spending all your time dealing with security issues
Yes. Right.
rather than
Yes.
saying I can make a pin drop for the campus center and we'll meet and look for the guy in the red hat. That's whatever. Right.
Yeah.
So
Oh, great, we have some time, good. I also would say, it's not really a question, but I don't want you to get caught up in the, well, it's not ready for prime time yet
Okay.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
Get a couple features on there and test it out and just try and move that as quickly as possible would be my best advice.
Are you and hijack other things like the idea of planning a meetup. I'm going to be working on this homework at 8 o'clock tonight. If we'll meet up on this FaceTime group or whatever.
Don't make it physical, it could be virtual.
Right, the idea is I'm going to be talking about this topic with this potential group of people, and it's that meetup matching that is kind of at least to me, the unique thing, or the unique space.
Yeah.
Then you can guerrilla warfare all the other stuff to make something happen, and then you go, oh, that's the thing we should implement.
Right.
So,
And go
quick
back
and
to
dirty.
Yeah.
Get started. It's a great idea.
Yeah, get back to UMass this weekend.
Yes.
This weekend and do another round.
Yeah.
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 Great.
Great. Well, we have a round.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Sandtronics, a mechanized sanding device that revolutionizes lumber beautification for authentic builders and craftsmen. Industry. The importance of the wood industry cannot be overstated. Our ships, our timber frame houses, our tables, chairs, etc. all are made out of wood. Wood is good. But there's a problem in that wood in its initial form is rough. We gotta smooth it out. We gotta smooth out the wood somehow. And we accomplish this via sanding. So there's a difference between what the consumer uses. On the left is the random orbital sander, it's small and convenient. And on the right, the big companies use the drum sander, which is expensive, but it features automation. Now, palm sanding is a boring and tedious process. Ever since in 5th grade, I was sanding timber frame beams for my father's business, and I was thinking, I have to move at a snail's pace for 5 hours? A robot could do this way better than me and apply a much more constant pressure. So you can see in between the two extremes, there's a middle market, and this is what the middle market is. It's Sandtronics. So what is the device that I made? It's a Roomba, but for beams. Okay, moving on. You basically take the hand and sander combination and you throw it out, and you apply the sander to a drive system and a system of rollers that keeps it on the beam. It doesn't let it fall off like the dumb device that it is. And you apply it to this beast. This is the actual Sandtronics roughness remover, and the same 3 components are highlighted. So what better way to get acquainted with the Sandtronics roughness remover than a video demonstrating exactly how to use it? Step 1, adjust table height. That's an adjustable table. Step 2, you roll it onto the beam. Step 3, you have to tighten the guide roller so it doesn't fall off. Step 4, you set in motion. You push it away from you, and you're set. You do have to move the sander to go back the other way and cover more area. So this is my current product. It is the Sandtronics Roughness Remover 2.0. And it makes sanding easier, it offers hands-free sanding, and it's faster than a person. Now it doubles the productivity. On the right you can see the square footage of sanding with the Sandtronics versus without the Sandtronics, just by your hand, is almost double. So it's basically quadrupling your productivity overall. The underlying magic is old school plywood gear technology. You start with a 700 RPM motor at 1/8 horsepower. You run it through a system of gears that reduces it down to 16 RPM. And it's a small roll. It's only 1 1/4 inches. And so this results in a robot that moves at a fast pace of 5.31 feet per minute. creating a very stable standing surface. Now, how do we make money of this device? We know how it works, but, well, I build the device, which I've already done, then you demonstrate it to the authentic builder and craftsman, and then you sell it, and that's how you make money. So this is me demonstrating the Sandtronics roughness remover to a group of 10 people that showed up at our house one day. Now, as you can see, they all have timber framing experience, and they're taking pictures and video, hopefully spreading the message of this exciting new product to their friends and family. Now, attention is a limited resource, so what's my competition? Well, it's the wallet breaker on the left, which is the Slabmiser MB200. It's complicated, takes up valuable floor space. You know craftsmen value their floor space. Just ask my dad when I was building this. And it's expensive, it's $17,000. The Sandtronics competitive advantage is it checks both the boxes of being cool and affordable. It can captivate a room of people, but afterwards, it's not exclusive. You can go and buy this device, and I want everyone to be able to afford it. So why am I the best person for this? Well, I'm in the mechanical engineering track, currently a sophomore. And look at the difference between this device, which was just a robotics kit, and it burned out. It burned out after three beams. And this one on the right is my newest product, which has already sanded dozens of large wooden beams and hundreds more to come. So this is our funding. This is funding for the parts. The parts are affordable. $200 is the most expensive part, just for the motor, and about $60 for other hardware. Now, where we need funding is in labor and marketing. Trade shows, ad campaigns, these all need money. But that's enough of me talking. I would like to open up the opportunity for everyone to ask questions, because I know you have a lot.
This is really cool. So you make these yourself, right?
Yes, I do. The first product took about, this one took about 3 months to make. And I was actually working for my dad's business during the day. I would come home at night and work on this. Even just making a small step makes a big difference over many days.
Do you have plans to mass produce these, or how do you plan to get them out?
Mm-hmm. So there are several different approaches to that. The first one is I can make them in batches. If I make them in batches of 10 to 12, then I can make them a lot faster than just building one at a time. And I can work on getting the part count down and the parts, making them cheaper. But yeah, the other solution is I could license this technology to a tool company, which I've seen people do before. And basically that would offload the marketing and manufacturing responsibilities to them. I'm open to any suggestions at this point.
Great.
So on the tech side,
mm-hmm.
This is obviously for certain size beams.
Yes.
What's the range of sizes that you're looking at?
Yeah. Basically, when I'm building these, that is the first thing I consider. That is a good question. It can go down to as narrow as 5-inch wide beams and as wide as, I think, 14 inches. We never have 14-inch beams, but I wanted to be sure. So that's the range.
And then the length, I mean, it's obviously a minimal length of
mm-hmm.
only like more than a foot it has to be.
Well,
the device itself is...
You're right. Basically, thanks to this height adjustable table right here, it can be about as short as you want. You can just have the device rolling back and forth on the table, and the sander would be ahead of the device, sanding a smaller board. But it's recommended for longer, between 10 to 24 foot beams, or as long as you want. Beams can be as long as you want.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get to the end,
mm-hmm.
is there a detection system to know when you're hit at the end of the beam?
That is an excellent question. Right now, I have a remote relay switch wired up, and it's on a remote. And when you see it, you have to stop it manually. When you see it get to the end, you have to press the off button, or you can just wait for it and you can push it in the opposite direction. But obviously, this will be worked on in future prototypes, and you're very good for pointing that out. I appreciate the attention to detail. Mm-hmm.
Why are you using a palm sander versus a drum sander?
So a drum sander, it's a different type of sanding, and it doesn't leave a desirable finish for wood, like these beams that are above our heads right now. It's not exactly the smoothest sanding, and drum sanders are expensive. Like no timber framer that I know of uses drum sanders to process large amounts of wood. Okay. You get wood from the sawmill, and they run it through a planer, but after that you have to sand it to make it even more smooth.
So, like if you were to use these in a barn, they might leave them rough, right? But this is for like timber frame, nice houses. Is that what your dad does?
Yes, that is what my dad does. He does timber frame houses in Maine. And we're working on different types of applications for this device. We don't want it to be exclusive to timber framers, but that is being in the timber frame market is a very good market to be in, because due to COVID-19, everyone wants to move up north where there are a lot of timber framers. And they are booked out years in advance, every timber framer. And so I assure that there's no shortage of needs.
You're saying today, when you get, because the number of beams for timber frame houses is amazing. So all the exposed beam surfaces would be sanded this way, you're saying, right?
Yes.
And do you have an idea how much time that would be?
How much time it takes to sand a single house? Well,
this is the kind of thing you should put in here.
Yeah.
Because to me, the fact that you've made something that works is amazing. And you've got, I'm a mechanical engineer, you've got some really clever little linkages and everything. It does seem more complicated and bigger than it needs to be, but you already admitted that. So to me is one, take the timber framing case and figure out like what the economics would be, like how much time you would save them. And even then you can look at like being able to set it on a beam. Is there a way you can get it to do 2 sides at once, or 3 sides without having to touch it again, right? Because or the labor multiplication can you get? Also seems to me you could do it in parallel to put 2 palm sanders on it or whatever.
Yeah.
Do you have to do it at multiple grits, or is it basically 1 grit?
It's just 1 grit. Basically, we use 80 grit sandpaper for everything.
So that, and then the idea, which you've alluded to, but it's a little hard to see how this exact machine would map to other use cases. There's an interesting, not exactly perfect analogy, but you've probably seen that robotic the NC router.
NC router, I have seen.
So there's this thing that you put down, and in this case, you drive it around rough, and it takes care of all the fine movements.
It does, yeah.
Yeah. It might be an interesting analogy to sit there and say there's something that would do, like if you could get this to sand tabletops.
Yep.
Or other things, and it would drive around more like a Roomba, would be interesting. So to me, it's like business case for the business,
Yeah.
and then where you could take the core technology or this beyond that.
Yeah. So about the timber framing thing, which you mentioned, I'd like to point out the graph. I should have included more figures, but it does double. It is twice as fast as a person standing, even when you have to turn it around at the end, even when you have to move it to multiple beams to get it to stand. It is still much faster. So I could say it close to cuts the standing time in half for a timber frame house or any type of standing you want to do. About the 2D, making it move in 2D, the technology for that is more complicated, and basically I'm working on. I would like to work on that. Right now, the focus is to make the part count lower on this, but I'm very open to all types of new technologies. So thank you.
Yeah, it's really cool. Do you have do you have any drawings of this?
I do have many drawings that I drew over the course of the summer.
Excellent. What I would recommend is to take those drawings to some prototype labs, and even to some manufacturers, and kind of ask them, like, if you were to make a couple changes, what would you change to make this a little bit maybe simpler, or maybe more manufacturable? So I think you got something really cool here.
Yeah, and I have something to add to that. It's a good point. Is materials. Like, why build it out of wood? Why not build it out of plastic or metal? Wood is what I have, and I think it's it's a sturdy, renewable material, and it's a great starting point for me. The hardware is stainless steel rods, and so it won't rust. And another thing is cordless. It is corded. The current model is corded, and the vacuum is a little annoying to drag, but I'm working on a small dust collector to fix that. My idea is to have brushless DC motors and make it cordless eventually. So I am thinking about amazing new ideas. Thank you.
And do you have an idea of how much funding you would need to get to your next milestone? What that would be?
If I could manufacture 10 of these devices this winter, which I believe I could do, it would cost about $3,000 in parts and obviously a lot more in labor. So basically I want to do that. I want to iterate this device over the winter, manufacture 10 of them, and then demonstrate to the hardworking craftsmen in the spring. In the springtime we could do this, or in the summer.
Just out of curiosity, how much do you think you charge for one?
My idea is to keep the price about $1,000 or less. I think that is way more reasonable than any other tool company would charge for something like this. And I think timber framers, as busy as they are, they want to invest in their tools. So I could charge more than, I could charge $2,000 and I would still sell a lot. But I also want this to be accessible for the hobbyists and craftsmen. So $1,000 to $2,000. Mm-hmm.
Great, cool stuff.
I have a video because I know your technology. This is a technology pitch, so I wanted to show you. This is the reversing gears mechanism. Because we have
42 seconds.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, it changes direction based on which gears are in mesh. I just thought it was interesting. That's all. Thank you very much for your time.
If you're anything like me, you have an old filing cabinet, maybe in the basement somewhere else, that you keep all your medical records, tax documents, anything that's too sensitive to be stored remotely or locally on your computer. And that's just sort of because of things that don't allow you to feel safe storing them there. But what if there was a solution that allowed you to store your sensitive documents remotely and locally, completely securely, allowing you to access that data on any device? There's a reason we can't do that, and that's cybercriminals. They're one reason. With things like malware, man-in-the-middle attacks, and phishing, all pose threats to individuals and enterprises and their sensitive data. Cybercriminals are not the only ones that keep us from doing this. Companies like Google and Dropbox offer to host your data for free, but at the same time, they encrypt your data with keys that they own. Meaning, if they want to, they can go look at your data whenever they want to. Because you don't own the key to your own data, you don't know who's looking at it. With Avelium, I'm looking to solve this solution with 3 simple steps of security, trustlessness, and convenience. Security, your data is always encrypted locally and remotely, and your encryption key, which we're giving to the individual, is never transmitted over the internet and is never known by anyone. Trustlessness, Avelium itself doesn't even know your encryption key. You keep that all to yourself, and that data is never accessible to anyone but you, beating storage companies that host your data. Convenience, what's all this for if it's not convenient to use? From any device, you're able to access this remote repository as long as you have access to your encryption key, giving you easy access and getting rid of the dusty filing cabinet. So this diagram goes over a little bit. You have your user endpoints, laptop, phone, anything else. And this, as long as you have the encryption key on your computer, you're able to use something called a zero-knowledge proof to authenticate yourself with Avelium's cloud storage, which allows you to pull down any encrypted information you have stored and allows you to decrypt it locally on your local storage. This gives you what zero-knowledge proofs allow you to do is to authenticate that you do own an encryption key, but that you don't expose the encryption key itself by using proofs and math. And then that allows you to decrypt that data locally so that only you are able to access it. A little bit more client-facing, we have our basic application, which allows users to download the local agent from the Avelium website, which is completely local, has no remote access to it. You upload your encryption key that, again, only you know about. This allows you to pull down information from Avelium, like to view your files, like tax documents, and access them and share them, or to upload additional documents to your remote repository to be accessed somewhere else. This can all be done without exposing your encryption key to Avelium or anyone else. As for a business model, we're looking for a free tier of 250 megabytes for new users, just to get them accustomed to the environment, and then linearly scale the amount that they're storing with a 15% volume fee on top, allowing us to keep up with hosting fees while also paying for the development of the product. We're looking primarily to go for individuals and small to mid-tier enterprises looking to go paperless. Again, trying to get that sensitive data out of the basement and into the cloud where it's easily accessible and can be used anywhere on any device. We have some competitors. The trustless technology sort of goes along with something called blockchain. And then there's a solution for trustless storage called Filecoin. But of course, as some of you may know, blockchain is very hard to understand for some people and can be very unreliable. Which makes this solution, while it's nice for people that do understand blockchain and want to keep up with the network and all this sort of stuff, they can use that, but it's not accessible to most individuals. And additionally, Google Docs, why not just use Google Docs? It's not trustless. They own your encryption keys. They can look at your data. That's sort of going against what we're trying to do here. As for our roadmap, I formulated sort of my idea back in July, formulated a business plan around September, sort of put together the main suite of features that I'm looking to include. Going into December and February, I'm looking to communicate with some more industry professionals, do some more R&D, because cryptography is one of those things that you got to do it right the first time, and hopefully get an alpha versioning by February. For funding, we're looking to raise up to $150,000. This is used for attending conferences, making those connections, getting in contact with these people that will allow us to build a better product, get some development hours to get the MVP working, organize a compute budget, and security audits.
So it seems to me you have two pieces, and maybe they're joined, but I mean, if I encrypt, if I make a zip file of the data I want and encrypt it on my machine and upload it to Google Drive, I have a trustless solution, right? I'm not trusting Google. So how is your solution different than doing that?
So for something like Google Drive, so what protects our data while it's being stored is encryption, which essentially you take a key and
I know how encryption works. I'm saying I encrypt it on my machine with sophisticated encryption. I upload that zip file or that file to Google Drive or any cloud service. How specifically is your solution different from a user's perspective and a technology perspective than effectively that, or is it?
Right, yeah, so that was a good question. That's sort of where the convenience comes in. The whole idea, you could just encrypt your data, keep track of your own encryption key in your own sort of way and just pull it down. But sort of what I was trying to incorporate is to sort of put that all in one to allow you, not only does Avelium help you create your encryption key, it encrypts it for you and creates a pipeline for you to pull down and upload this encrypted data while also protecting your passcodes, because that's another thing. In transit, your data can be intercepted. And while it's encrypted, they can still get access to your encryption key. Say, if they were to get onto your computer, intercept the data that you're sending, and also find the encryption key on your computer, they would be able to access your data. But with Avelium, you're able to use that zero knowledge proof so that you can't just intercept your encryption key when it's being sent to and from the storage.
But my encryption key never goes to the storage location.
Right, so if, say, your encryption key is stored locally, and you're sending data...
I mean, there's various ways. What's your background? Are you a computer science major or math major?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so I'm just curious, like, are you throwing around the zero knowledge proof idea, or do you really understand the actual sort of encryption process and the fact there's a lot of ways to encrypt data locally where I don't really have an exposed encryption key that's resident at my computer, and so that I can create essentially a secure enough archive that I could upload to the cloud. And so is it a technical innovation, I guess, that you're thinking, or is it really a
It's
packaging?
It's sort of like a
of
meshing.
service?
It's creating that pipeline that allows users to, like you said, sort of have a encryption key, encrypt it locally, because say you don't trust Google to keep your data safe. You encrypt it locally, you send it up, and that's something you can do on your own, but I'm sort of creating a pipeline for users that aren't that technologically inclined to allow them to have that sort of security without having to have the background, to have to go through those hoops, to encrypt everything yourself, send it up, and have to deal with all that.
Okay. Just one last
Yeah.
comment is I don't know the last time I got a sensitive document in a paper form. Everything is electronic at this point.
So yeah, there's lots of things there. You interestingly did not mention Apple and iCloud, which does not have knowledge of your keys as well, and does not know the encryption of your data, as far as I understand. They don't have your key.
Oh, gotcha.
So they're one, I would say, what's the difference between that? Because you don't mention iCloud, because Apple has a policy of not having the keys.
I was not aware of this. So how do they encrypt your data? Do they?
Well, that's the question. I'm not sure exactly what they do, but the point is, it's encrypted on your device. Yes, you're right. And then
You need to do a bit.
Yeah, do a little more research into those. So let's talk a little bit about the tech that you're using. So zero knowledge proof. So right now what you're doing is pulling together a bunch of pieces, parts to make this application. How far along are you with that so far? I know you're planning to get things done by February, but what have you got done so far?
Yeah, so mostly what we have done is sort of the architectural design, which is there's no code at the current moment.
Okay.
It's generally just architecting what pieces of sort of the cryptographic pieces are we putting together to create that pipeline. And that's something that, again, you need to sort of understand what you're doing when you're doing it. So I'm planning on doing, specifically getting in touch with industry leaders and professionals that are more sort of understanding of the current sort of cryptographic environment to get the best solution. Just because that'll save us a lot of time down the road to make sure what we're doing is the right thing the first time.
Well, I guarantee you will have a security hole at some point, but that's okay. That's just part of the world. So you've just essentially been putting together the bubble diagrams, black diagrams of how you want to put this together. So your first customers that you're going after, you said sort of the people who are individuals. So part of the problem here is that many of the people you're talking to don't know they have a problem. So it sounds like there's an education phase here that's pretty challenging to get to this set of people. Because quite honestly, the people who know they have a problem, like Steve has already figured out his solution, right? He encrypts things on his own, and he knows what he's doing before he puts it someplace. How do you find them?
It's sort of my understanding that, like for instance, I have an anecdotal reference to my parents keep a filing cabinet, paper documents. They don't really know what's lurking.
So how do you get to them?
We can sort of use the examples of things that have happened in the past, like Equifax, problems like where you can't really rely. Hopefully I'm answering your question.
Well, actually, Equifax is an interesting problem because it had nothing to do with the people involved and whether they encrypted their data. It had to do with Equifax itself as a company. So it's actually not a good example.
Well,
I get to a more fundamental problem about this, because I think that the customer you're aiming for, one, you really do need to look at iCloud and the state-of-the-art sort of, because other people are working on this problem, and iCloud actually does this for you automatically, if you're an Apple user. But if you're focused on a group of customers that have their stuff in the file cabinet, why do they need it online in an encrypted form, ever, that information?
It's been my understanding that, say, for So I know you're able to file through the IRS online. I believe that's an option you have. Additionally, for like medical documents, you can, for updating, say, at least with my provider, we use online to upload data, like sort of if you become a new patient to a certain hospital or whatever, you can send your files online and sort of set up your account.
I need to send them an unencrypted PDF so they can look at it. Or if I file, in
Right.
the IRS, if I file electronically and the IRS sends me a copy of my return, they send it to me unencrypted. And I'm either going to store that, it was sent to me unencrypted, or I'm going to print it out if I'm your parents and put it in a file.
And the danger there is fire more than anything else, fire and flood.
And there is clearly market opportunity in this space. I'm not. What we're trying to do, I think, is get you to focus on: is it a technical innovation? Is it a process innovation? And you have to be really think about alternatives or the case for your potential customer. Like, why would they want to use this service? There is clearly, I don't think anyone's got a good all-encompassing solution for this, but you should at least be aware of things like iCloud and how it behaves.
Yeah, certainly. These were going to be a lot of my comments and questions too. Even perhaps you talk to businesses, and maybe this would be something that would be helpful for a corporation, for example, to store their information. Is it you on the team?
Yeah, just me.
Okay, congratulations for getting this far. That's really great.
Oh, 10 seconds. Okay.
Julie's question about businesses, I think, is actually an interesting one, because businesses have, in some cases, they have to keep certain records for certain times. They have to keep certain types of records. And there's a process where things like iCloud don't work very well, and in some cases, cloud. So, like I said, there's a huge market landscape here. I think you have to look at, okay, what are you interested in? What's the key insight you might have? But looking at small, medium-sized businesses is a
Those
very
that use
interesting
Google
one.
Drive like mine.
Well, or ones that have regulatory requirements, right, that they have to meet.
And we've had examples with startups where someone's doing stuff with Google Drives, and their financials end up available to like their youth soccer team because they have the roster on the same Google Drive. So there's some interesting things there, but I think you need to think more deeply both about the technology side and alternatives, and what your segment is.
But you're doing great.
All right, thanks. Keep going.